What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Tactical Tortoise. My name is Trevi. Little bit of news coming for you in this video that I'm going to talk about today. Not 40K related, but a little bit more broad miniature gaming industry related. This is an announcement that came from Atomic Mass Games just today about the Star Wars Armada property. For those who don't know, Atomic Mass Games is essentially the spiritual successor to Fantasy Flight Games, and especially Fantasy Flight Miniatures, which oversaw the creation of games like X-Wing, Armada, and Star Wars Legion. Atomic Mass Games was formed by AMG Entertainment to build miniature games, and their flagship product was Marvel Crisis Protocol, but their jurisdiction was shifted to be more of a broad miniature gaming studio when AMG moved all of the Star Wars properties from being developed by Fantasy Flight Games over to Atomic Mass Games. I did a whole video on that when it happened. It was kind of a big deal, so you can go ahead and watch that if you want me to hear me talk about that a little bit more. But big announcement from Atomic Mass Games today, and not a great one, that Star Wars Armada currently had no new products in development. Here is the announcement in full. As we move into 2022 and beyond, we are excited to continue the support of Star Wars Armada by prioritizing reprints of existing products and through organized play initiatives. However, we currently do not have any new Armada products in development. We will provide additional information as it becomes available. So, as other people have stated around the wargamosphere, this essentially means that Star Wars Armada is most likely going to move into more of a maintenance mode, where it's not really going to see active support, but it will still be sold and will still be supported from an organized play standpoint. What that looks like in the future, we have no idea. Obviously, Atomic Mass Games has been a little bit light on its organized play initiatives so far. All of the Star Wars miniature games in the past had been pretty focused on organized play and especially competitive play when they were being governed by Fantasy Flight Games. But Atomic Mass Games has stated pretty clearly, at least in relation to Marvel Crisis Protocol, that they don't really have plans for competitive play. So whether we'll see that same style of competitive play in the future for these Star Wars games, we have absolutely no idea. Now, for those who don't know, Star Wars Armada has a history of not receiving new releases very quickly. They have a very long development time, and I think just the smaller player base of Armada and the higher cost of creating the larger models for it, as opposed to a game like X-Wing or a hobby game like Star Wars Legion, means that there's a lot of setup time involved with these models. So if this just means a pause in development, that's not something that the game hasn't seen before. That said, this message is, of course, very tactfully worded, in that it allows Atomic Mass Games a lot of outs depending on how they elect to approach the property in the future. Star Wars Armada did just see a huge release wave earlier this year that delved into the Clone Wars era Star Wars universe. That drew a ton of source material from the Star Wars television shows, as well as the prequel movies, and was one of the largest and most comprehensive waves that the game has seen released so far, with several new packs coming out for two brand new factions. Previously, you could only play Rebel Alliance and Imperial Navy since the release of the game, so adding the two new factions on top of that with brand new mechanics, lots of new ships, was all very exciting. To me, this statement sounds like the Clone Wars release maybe didn't sell as well as we were hoping, so we're going to be putting the game on hiatus until such time as we revisit it and determine whether or not it's financially viable to continue development for the game. Obviously, the wording here is very important. They currently do not have any Armada products in development, meaning that there's still space open in the future if they want to develop products, but obviously, if they want to shut down support of the game, they certainly can do that. Prioritizing reprints of existing products is something that is potentially exciting if it comes to pass, because one thing that has been a downside of Armada for a while is that it having such a limited player base meant that oftentimes they had short runs of a lot of the new releases. So especially older releases become very hard to come by for the player base. And obviously new organized play would always be very cool. Now, on a personal level, this news is pretty upsetting to me. I'm a huge Armada stan. If you follow my Twitter like at all, basically it's nothing but Star Wars Armada photos. And I was posting a little bit on the YouTube community tab just a couple days ago because I was at a Star Wars Armada tournament, and actually have one in about 12 hours from me recording this video as well. So I play a lot of this game, and I really enjoy it. I think it's one of the most well-designed games on the market, and especially the most balanced games on the market. So if we are heading into a future where Star Wars Armada is no longer supported by AMG, which it does sound like this may be the first step of, that would be pretty disappointing. Like I mentioned before, I'm sure the game has absolutely immense setup costs for these new kits, but one thing that I hope the development team would consider putting time into, instead of releasing new models for the game, would be releasing new card packs instead. One of the great things about Star Wars Armada is that the actual ship statistics and releasing specific new ships isn't necessarily the most important impact of new releases. It's new upgrade cards, new characters to play, and with the way the game is set up, because the ship model that's on the top of the base is mostly flavor, and the actual information that's printed on the ship card that's placed into the base, there's a sort of a little inset that you place into the base, that is actually where the ship's statistics come from, which has allowed them in the past to release new ship cards without having to release a new model for the ship. That means that the only development costs, besides obviously rules development costs, would essentially be art and some setup fees for dies and things like that. But obviously, that's nothing near the cost of a new pre-painted and pre-assembled injection molded model. I think that would be an interesting direction for the game to take in the future, and I would hope that that's maybe what we see going into the near future. Now, it's important also to note that this announcement comes off the back of some turmoil within the Atomic Mass Games studio as well, and especially as it relates to the Star Wars miniature games. The future of these miniature games is very much in question, I think. We've recently seen several lead developers be let go from the company. As the merger took place, we saw Alex Davies, who was one of the masterminds of the X-Wing miniatures game and had his hands in Star Wars Legion and I believe in Star Wars Armada as well. And earlier this year, we had Luke Eddy, who was mainly a Star Wars Legion developer, as well as some of the other studio members who had developed for several of these games, all let go from the studio around the same time. There's a lot of open question marks surrounding Atomic Mass Games management of these new Star Wars games and what the future of these Star Wars games will hold. And really, without primary sources from directly inside the company, we don't really have any idea what's going on or what the face of these Star Wars game development will look like in the future. I do want to note as well that I do appreciate kind of the candor of this announcement. The announcement itself doesn't really have any text to it. There's no particular messaging that we can draw on. It's very vague. But the fact that we got what is in essence an announcement for a future announcement, I think is good, because it primes the community to kind of get any particular feeling one way or another about the future of the game out of the way now, without just going ahead and pulling the band-aid off very quickly and having everyone quit cold turkey. Sort of similar to what Steamforged Games did with Guild Ball a little bit earlier, where they just kind of out of the blue announced that they would no longer be supporting one of their flagship games. So it is nice that there is an announcement talking about the game at all. I do appreciate that, even though it's not much to be thankful for. Anyway, just wanted to talk about this announcement a little bit because it is pretty personal to me. I do love Star Wars Armada, and I hope it continues on in the future. I definitely understand if it will not be receiving development in the future, though, because the population is relatively small, although I'm sure many local communities will continue to play it and potentially even support it themselves. Like I mentioned, most of the intricacies of the game come from upgrade cards and ship cards, and those are things that players can create themselves. So we could potentially see sort of a community-driven initiative to retain support for the game going on into the future. And I hope that that's something that happens and, you know, kind of shows Atomic Mass Games that there is definitely still interest in this game and does have a thriving community that they could potentially profit off of. Anyway, that's all I have to say for today. I'm going to stop rambling about the spaceship game that nobody plays. I want to thank everybody for watching all the way to the end of the video. As always, thanking my patrons and YouTube channel members and Twitch subscribers, everyone who helps the channel go. And I'll see you in the next one.